Okay. Okay.
Thank you. We'll call to order our special meeting via Zoom today, December 7th, to discuss transportation with our colleagues. So Todd and Rudy from NACOG. And so anyway, thank you all for being here. So let's begin. Candace, should we just start with Todd, or
We need a roll call first.
roll call first? Would you please call the roll?
Okay, Mayor Dillenberg,
Here.
Vice Mayor Worth,
Present.
Ms. Harvey is absent, Ms. Barber,
Present.
Ms. Moore.
I'm here.
Yay. Thank you all for being here today. So let's begin if we can. I don't know. Alex, did you want to speak? I see your. No? Okay. All right, Candace, let's begin.
Okay,
I know Bill, we don't need to be in closed session at this point.
no.
Counselor, good to see you, Bill.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, Dr. Mayor.
All right, it's okay.
We have Todd Morris from NACOG and Rudy Rodriguez of Cottonwood here to talk to us about our possible participation in area transit services. And Todd has a presentation he's going to make. I had previously given you a memo with a number of $20,000, and they've been diligent in reducing that. So,
Yay. Thanks, Todd. Thanks, Rudy.
Sure. And Candace, real quick, I believe I was going to just share my screen. I'm seeing that the host disabled participant.
Oh, okay, I thought I fixed that. Hold on, hold on one sec.
There we go.
Okay.
Great. Thanks, Todd.
Am I good to kick things off?
Yes, please.
Okay, well, good morning, everybody. My name is Todd Morris. I'm the Senior Mobility Planner with Northern Arizona Council of Governments, and I'm here also with Rudy Rodriguez from the town of Cottonwood. I'm not sure, Rudy, if you want to introduce yourself, if you haven't already.
Todd, I wanted just to briefly start off with thanking the council for the town council for all the work and support they've given us. This has been obviously several years in the making, and I think the work that Todd has put in, plus all the efforts of several individuals over at the town council, is making moving this forward, get some progress going. We're really pleased with the presentation that Todd is putting together today. He's putting a lot of hours on this thing. We're really looking for some major and fun changes for the city of Cottonwood Transit, and of course for the town of Jerome. So just want to thank council before we started off with all the support that we've gotten from all of you individuals and all the work that's been done out to date by Todd.
Good. And
Thanks,
thank
Todd.
you too, Rudy. I mean, really, you've helped us carry this ball down the field. So thank you very, very much. Todd, you're on.
All righty. So I want to talk a little bit about this feasibility plan for transit service up in Jerome. This is kind of a very unique project that's I think spanned multiple years in terms of discussions around bringing potential transit service up to Jerome. And so when there's an opportunity it sounded like the Jerome and Cottonwood Area Transit could use some support in kind of helping put together this feasibility plan, given how unique it is. NACOG kind of jumped in and said, hey, we can help kind of align some of these previous discussions. And I think as Candace alluded to, trying to track down how those previous conversations ended with some staff transitions was kind of there's quite the road that I've been on over the last month. But I think today's a really good opportunity for us to kind of lay out what we've identified so far and really get a good read from council on kind of next steps as we look to move forward. And so real quick, kind of, why do we need to conduct a feasibility plan? This is all in relations to the FTA 5311 funds, which are administered by ADOT. They require any sort of feasibility plan to be in place if you're going to apply for these 5311 funds or utilize any existing 5311 funds for any new services. And why the timing's so tight is the notice of funding for this 5311 program is expected to be announced this month. And so this funding would be a NOFA that would be the Cottonwood Area Transit would apply for to make these funds available in October 2022, the start of the federal fiscal year. And if we missed out on this opportunity, we wouldn't have another opportunity to apply until 2023. So this is definitely kind of while we're in this little bit of a time crunch right now, making sure we get everything in line with this study. So for the plan overview, this is kind of some general bullet points in terms of what the steps that I'm taking are to kind of put together this feasibility plan. One, as I mentioned before, is really to kind of document a lot of these previous conversations and revise some of those based on some new kind of assumption testing that I've done. A big piece of this is to engage the town of Jerome residents to determine the interest for transit. And I think that there really is a special interest on town of Jerome residents. I know that there's a lot of conversations in the past around the applicability of transit to help with the tourism. That is not necessarily something that's directly in line with how FTA and ADOT usually prioritizes these funds, where they would much rather look to support the town of Jerome residents. And so there's some work that I've done on that. And then I'm hoping to kind of walk through the design that we've identified for a weekly service route. At least up to this point, there's still quite a bit of unknowns that are there, but at least kind of show the work been done so far, and hopefully we can get some guidance from the council on some of the big next kind of determinations we need to make. And then finally on the budget piece, making sure that we're all talking about the same pots of money and the same amounts of money. So in the planning process, and this kind of outlines the presentation today, is I do want to kind of provide some of the feedback that we received from some of the outreach we've done on the need for transit service. And then we've kind of broken down how a transit solutions applicability in three categories. Is it feasible to deliver transit? Is it viable? And ultimately, is it desirable? And then lastly, kind of assess, what types of alternatives there'd be out there beyond the 5311 funding, or compare and contrast kind of this new service with what's already being delivered. So jumping into the need for transit service, this fall we conducted an online survey, and I also believe that we made the survey available through paper copies. And I guess, Candace, I need to maybe check back with you to see if we received any hard copies. Do you know if you guys have received any of those hard copies?
I'll find out, because that would have
Okay.
come, and I haven't seen any myself, so.
Sure. I don't know if we were expecting to, but we did receive 78 online survey responses, which is absolutely right in line with what we were hoping to get for this type of project.
Excellent.
So, and part of those 78 responses, we did ask if they considered themselves a Jerome resident. Over 80% did. So again, we were really kind of targeting and meeting that target group that we were looking for. And I think this graphic at the bottom kind of highlights the summary of everything that we were asking for in terms of if service was available, if transit service was available, would you or someone use it? And you can see here that over 80% said yes. We didn't have anybody say outright no, that they would not utilize this, that they or someone they know would not utilize the service. And then we'd had quite a few unsures, and that's, I think, a large part because of how general the survey was. We didn't actually propose, a specific service to them. We just kind of talked generally about transit. But anyway, I think that was very encouraging and helps really speak to the demand and the need for transit services. I'll go into a little bit more detail, some of the specific things we looked at. One of the things we wanted to gauge was how often are people traveling outside of Jerome for various activities. And so we broke down shopping, healthcare, banking, entertainment, and other services, and kind of broadly asked people about how often they're traveling outside of Jerome to reach those. And you can see the two categories in the middle, the 1 to 2 times per week and 1 to 3 times per month, are bolded. That's because that's really kind of the target time frame that we're looking at in terms of delivering service up to Jerome, because we're looking at potentially a weekly service, a 1 time per week service. And so we're trying to match that up with how that fits with the existing travel patterns. And I think that we were, pretty encouraged to see that there's a decent amount of travel taking place within those time frames. Next, we kind of followed up that question by asking, what's the level of difficulty you or someone has in accessing these various locations? So we listed the same locations. And you can see there in the somewhat difficult, we're right around 30% for just about all those categories. So about 1 in 3 survey takers indicate at least somewhat of a difficulty reaching these destinations outside of Jerome. We followed that up with a kind of open-ended question for them to list why. Unreliable vehicles was a huge piece. We also talked, there's a lot of comments regarding kind of the aging population in Jerome and how that's becoming more, they're seeing more and more of a need for these types of services with each passing year. So again, that really helps kind of some backup in terms of justifying implementing transit service up in Jerome. This is kind of a final takeaway, a summary survey or summary slide. Just demographic wise, about 80% of the survey takers were 50 plus. An interesting question that we asked was, what is their familiarity with the existing Cottonwood area transit service? And you can see 77% had never used Cottonwood area transit service before. So I think that's definitely a consideration that I'll talk about as we move forward. Here's kind of another spin on a previous question that I discussed was how often would you use transit if it were available? And again, on that 1 to 2 times per week, 1 to 3 times per month, we had over 50% in that general category. And only 14% of people said that they would never use this service. And again, I think there's a lot of comments in the open-ended question saying, I need more information about what the specific service is going to look like, which I think kind of is just a little bit of a shortfall of that survey. But overall, I think this is strong data that we can utilize, and I think it'll help with both the planning document as well as the application if that's that route we choose to take. I'll stop right there real quick. Are there any questions on kind of the assessment of need and the steps taken so far on the survey?
I don't see any hands or, no. Carry on, Todd.
Okay. So next, now we kind of wanted to get, I think that we could kind of check that box that, hey, yeah, there does seem to be a justifying bringing service up there. Now, how do we go about doing that? And how do we put that together in the plan that kind of takes into consideration some of these key elements? One of them is buses in Jerome. I think that's a big question that in any one of these conversations we've talked about. How do you get a bus up there? Obviously, budget's a big piece. How much service are we actually talking about? Days of the week and the times of the route. And that's still kind of a little bit of an unknown that I'm hoping to get some feedback from the group today on. How does adding this type of service impact the supply of drivers? Transit across the board right now, across the nation, is having an incredibly hard time finding drivers. So how does this type of service addition impact the ability to maintain that? Considerations around ADA paratransit service, which is a mandatory service for certain types of routes that we need to determine if that's going to be a required element from ADOT or not for this service. And we actually do not have an answer for that quite yet, but we're hoping to find that out. And then how can we make sure that this route integrates with this broader Cottonwood area transit system that we have up here on the map? And I think the main piece of that here is, it's probably pretty hard to read, but the library in Cottonwood is their major transfer location. And so that's kind of the heart of the Cottonwood area transit system. How can we ensure that this route is connecting with the library and with those other routes that would help people kind of navigate the broader region? So kind of breaking it down into those various questions that I wanted to kind of check off here, is this feasible to do? So with a lot of back and forth and refinements, we are working around the assumption of a $4,500 Jerome budget, which is I'll also refer to that as the local match portion of this. So that $4,500 from Jerome would enable Cottonwood area transit to access about another $4,500 from the FTA through the 5311 program, also through ADOT, giving us a total budget of about $9,000 per year. The average cost per hour for Cottonwood area transit is about $70 per hour. So that, or $70 per hour. So that would allow us about 130 hours of service per year. If we kind of looked at what that means from a service standpoint, if we're talking about service 1 day a week, that can give us about 3 runs up to Jerome and back, with some additional kind of miscellaneous expenses that we are anticipating to be associated with this as well. So that's kind of the budget and the parameters that we're working with here, is that $4,500 would get 3 runs from the library up to Cottonwood.
Awesome.
So next, and this is kind of getting a little bit into the nitty ditty or the gritty details, but I think it's really important to see how Cottonwood area transit is looking at implementing this. So there's the red route, as you can see here, which goes from the Cottonwood Library kind of up highway up 89A, ultimately to the up to Main Street in Clarkdale. So we see an opportunity here for essentially just revising this route. Again, we're only talking about three times per week, really. That 1 day a week, that's 3 times, and just having, you know, a run, go, take a turn off here on 89 up to Jerome, and then back to the library. It's not feasible right now to run up to Jerome and then also complete the whole loop in the time frame. So we're kind of playing with some different variations about what that would look like. And this is really an important solution because it doesn't require Cottonwood Area Transit to have to go find more drivers or more vehicles. They can just utilize the existing services that they have and make that turn up State Route 89A. And one of the big pieces that we're still trying to work through is because it's not feasible to run up to Jerome and also complete this full loop, is we need to do some assessments with the ridership, the riders that are currently utilizing this service. Because there's by chance, you know, 3 times per week now, that service would not be available to them. So we need to kind of assess the time points that would make the most sense where it's not impacting that existing service as well. So we are seeing a viable option there from Cottonwood's standpoint. Viability in Jerome, and so I've got a couple of screenshots here, but this is essentially that parking lot behind the fire station. This is our little fire station here. This was identified as the primary location for the bus to come up into Jerome, turn around, and also pick up individuals. There's been a lot of different conversations around, is this the only stop that we're looking to consider? And there's some other potential options I have as well. But you know, this is a viable option in that it has been used for the existing transit service up in Jerome. The shuttle service utilizes this spot. We think that because it's only 1 day a week, there's going to be minimal impacts on traffic. And I think there's always an option to add additional stops as we go. But this is kind of the chief piece that we're utilizing in our budget assumptions, is just coming up to this location, picking people up and turning around and coming back. There are some questions that, you know, I think are relevant here in terms of this is kind of, you know, very much on one end of town. And are there concerns about people being able to access that bus stop location? I know it's being used for the existing services, but that's definitely a consideration that we want to think about if that's the only stop location it's going to have up in Jerome. So some other spots that we're kind of considering is over by the Jerome Sliding Jail, and this would be kind of an additional stop location. I think we're without a doubt going to do behind the fire station, but you know, is this a viable option as well for an additional stop off? And I hope people can kind of read that. I'm not exactly familiar with the specifics of this location, but it is something that is brought up by a CAT supervisor who drove up there saying this is maybe something we could look at as an additional stop.
Yes.
In addition to that, there's also another stop that was identified here on Main Street. This is right across from the Merkin Vineyards. And there's a little pull out there that the supervisor indicated this could also be another option we could potentially look at for another pickup location.
Yep.
So I think it's viable. It's viable for both Cottonwood to build it into their existing service, and it seems like it's viable for them to get a bus up and around Jerome. So I think these are all positive pieces. The last category that I want to talk through is the desirability. As I talked about a lot earlier in this presentation, you know, I think we've got good backup that 1 day a week would be appropriate for this amount of service.
Yeah.
You know, over 80% said they or someone they know would use the service. You know, from a fare standpoint, it's only $1.25 one way for individuals that would have to pay to utilize the service. And that would enable them it would include a transfer onto another Cottonwood Area Transit bus. And so, you know, it's definitely a pretty low cost option to people that we do think that's pretty desirable. However, you know, there is right now the bus would look to come from Jerome, and the only real location it's gonna travel to is going to be the Cottonwood Library. Anywhere else that people want to go is going to require them to do a transfer there. And so given the survey responses on the limited experience with the CAT system, I think that's something that's worth kind of considering. And then there need to be quite a bit of kind of travel training and additional marketing in place to help people kind of navigate the broader system.
And is there an additional fare if they transfer?
No, there is not. So for them, yeah, for an example, and I'll walk through this example, but if somebody wanted to go from Jerome to Walmart, they could pay $1.25 in Jerome, that take them to the library. They could transfer then from the library or from this Jerome route to the route that takes them to Walmart without another fare. They would need to pay once they got back on from Walmart on the return trip. It's a one-way.
Okay, so it'll be another $1.25 or a different fare?
Yep. Another
$1.25
$1,
to
another
back.
one-way fee coming back up.
Gotcha.
Todd, can I ask a quick question?
Absolutely.
How often do the buses come through at the library? If somebody went to the library, how long would they have to wait to get another ride somewhere else?
Great question. And I think I'll talk about that here in my next slide. So I think one of the things I think we talked about the access to stops and ensuring that wherever we are going up in Jerome, that's accessible, by foot potentially, as much as possible. But the timing of the routes, we don't necessarily have those in cemented yet because we need to look at the impacts of the current red route in the Clarkdale area. But I do want to kind of walk through this example of what it would look like for somebody from a time standpoint. Because those buses do leave every 45 minutes from the Cottonwood Library. Every bus is timed to leave at the same exact point. So that's part of the kind of juggling that we need to do here with this Jerome route to ensure that it still meets that criteria. Because we definitely want to, those streamlined transfers are imperative for this service to be successful. So, this in red here is kind of a little example trip. For somebody that's wanting to travel from Jerome to go do some shopping at Walmart. And so, from Jerome to the Cottonwood Library, that's going to probably take about 20 minutes over on the bus. That transfer would be about 15 minutes in terms of the time that they have there at the library before that next bus leaves for Walmart. It'd take about 15 minutes for them to take the yellow route in this example to get to Walmart. If they're at Walmart, they'd have to spend, I guess, at a minimum 45 minutes because the buses only come around 45 minutes at that Walmart location. So at least they're spending 45 minutes at Walmart to then hop back on that bus from Walmart to the Cottonwood Library. And then they'd have another 15-minute kind of wait period before that transfer, before taking that final route up to Jerome. So ultimately, it's I just want to provide an example here. It'd be about a 145-minute trip for somebody to go from Jerome to Walmart and back. And that does include 2 transfers of buses. So those are just some considerations. I think a general rule in transit is to try to limit transfers as much as possible. That's just simply not going to be feasible with this project. And so it is something I want to make sure council was kind of going into with their eyes wide open on what those transfers could potentially impact the desirability of the service as a whole. But I wanted to get kind of council's feedback on, this is the quickest that I would see somebody being able to get from Jerome to Walmart and back, utilize these services. So just some considerations there. And then ultimately, kind of the last piece of this presentation was talking about, the alternatives or the future of the existing Jerome shuttle that's being utilized for the 1-day-a-week service into Cottonwood. The current service is providing door-to-door service 1 day a week. So that is a very high level of service in comparison to what we're proposing here. It's not necessarily requiring those transfers. And then I had some questions for council in terms of if the partnership with Cottonwood Area Transit comes to be, what's the status of this kind of Jerome shuttle service? Is that something that's still going to be going on for those hired and need individuals, or is the is the Cottonwood partnership going to replace that? Because there could be some opportunities for kind of it's that serving in a complementary role.
Absolutely. We're thinking of, at this point, we're thinking of maintaining both.
Maintaining both. That's very important for me to know. Okay.
And I got a Walmart question when you're ready.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And
Walmart is pretty generous. in their charity work. I'm just curious if one of our residents goes down and shops there, where we could work out with Walmart, that if they buy something at Walmart, they'll get a pass, $1.25 pass to get them back home. Compliments of Walmart.
You know, there's definitely examples of that across the nation. You know, from me working in rural transit here in
Yeah.
Northern last 5 years, I have been unsuccessful in reaching any sort of agreement like that with any of the Walmarts throughout there.
Oh, okay.
But it's absolutely something that's worth pursuing and considering.
Yeah. Just curious. That'd be nice. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
So the current service would maintain, you guys would still be running that in some capacity. It still would maintain that budget, that driver for that to be run in some way or shape or form. And I think that's a really important thing for us to know. One of the questions that I kind of mentioned, that's an unanswered question at this point, is if there's going to be a requirement for ADA paratransit service, which is essentially it's Americans with Disability Act. If somebody is physically unable to access a bus stop, that they're not essentially denied access to that service. And so there is kind of curb to curb service, another branch of that that can be applied. And we don't know exactly what the parameters are in terms of what ADOT's going to require, because this is such a unique, limited route. Is ADOT also going to require that ADA piece as well? Because that is a very expensive service. So that's just still an unknown that they'll be sorting out here in the next couple of weeks.
Great. Well done.
So in summary, I guess, you know, these are kind of some questions slash summary items from this presentation. Is, you know, that $4,500 commitment from the town of Jerome, is that, can we put a big check mark next to that in terms of, is that what we have moving forward?
Yes. Well, that's the number we've been thinking of. So I
Okay.
believe so. We'll talk about that with our council members here.
Sure.
I can tell you that number was budgeted in the last 2 years.
Yes.
You know, with the anticipation that we'd be providing this.
Yeah.
Jane has her hand up, Mayor.
Yes. Oh, Jane. Yes, please, Jane.
I was wondering, because I know people shop at Safeway and other stores. Would Walmart be the only stop, or does the CATS van stop at other places? And banking was one of the other things I saw, and doctor's appointments. So I just wondered if the CATS van, if Walmart was the only place it went from the library, was one of my questions.
Sure, great question. And so let's see if this works. If I can pull this over, if I can screen share. Is that not showing up? No, it's not. I was going to pull up the map, but I think I had it in a previous slide. Bear with me here. So
Yeah,
no, so in short, no, Walmart is absolutely not the only shopping location. That was an example that I utilized for this. But you could see here, I don't know if you can or not, but there's Safeway that's along the routes as well. You know, CVS is along there, the Verde Valley Shopping Center. And so there's numerous stops, and I apologize, that's probably getting really hard to read, but those are the connections of the existing route structure that's there within the existing.
Available.
Let me kind of jump in here, Todd. We hit all the major grocery stores, as well as the pharmacies and medical clinics in the area if you need them,
Okay.
as well as a college.
Great question, Jane.
Well, I had another, I thought of a couple of other spots that might be places that people could be picked up that would be on 89A. And I don't know, it's private property at the high school, but the high school or the Historical Society parking lot there, right there on Hampshire, might work out as a pickup spot, because I don't know if everyone that needs transit, those would be good spots to pick up uptown. I'm not sure about that. And then another spot is at the Hairpin by the Gulch Fire Station. there's room to pull over. I don't know how big this bus is gonna be, but I was thinking that might be another spot. And then the other thing I was wondering is if when it says 3 times a day to Jerome, so it would come up in the morning, come up maybe midday, and then later in the afternoon. Is that correct?
That's part of what we need to sort through.
Mhm.
You know, that's kind of what has been discussed from my notes from previous conversations, is that's what it would generally look like. I think there's some considerations, obviously, on the existing red route, on how, you know, that those aren't time points that it's currently being used heavily, and also ensuring that, you know, it's not somebody catching a bus down at 8 and maybe not being able to catch a ride back till noon. There's some, you know, concerns around that in terms of that being a long period to be stuck down in Jerome. So that's what we're trying to sort out, essentially, is what those timing points would look like if they're closer together. So it's, you know, more conducive to like a 2-hour trip down into town, or if it's rather to be a 4-hour trip. I think those are things that we still need to work through.
Okay.
Great.
And so to make
Thank
sure
you.
I capture that, Councilmember Moore, the high school is a potential stop.
Yes.
Was it the Historical Society?
Well, there's a little parking area as you're coming up on the right-hand side of the road past where you turn into the old high school.
Okay,
That's kind of a pull-through area. And then the hairpin, the Gulch Fire Station is down there. That might be another one.
That's
okay.
where that sharp turn is coming up the hill there, where the mileage drops down to 17. That turn there, but there is enough room for a pickup spot.
I think one of the things, let me jump in. One of the things we need to look at is the time constraints also, understanding that we have to make that trip up there and back within certain time constraints to not cause any issues with the red route and the rest of the routes. So
Okay.
we want to make sure that whatever we do, one, doesn't add any more time to the buses as far as turning around, and make sure that any stops that we have are probably the most viable spots. We can always look at it further down the road if we need more additional parking spots. But right now, initially we were just looking at 1 stop. Now we're looking at 3, and which starts to concern me a little bit because of the timing. But if we add 2 more into 5, that might be a little bit more of a difficulty for us to be able to get that red route to actually make that trip up there.
That actually was not what I was talking about. I was talking about, rather than 2 pickup spots right uptown, that they're one of the ones, like the one by the sliding jail, might be replaced by another one, say at the high school or the bottom of the Gulch. So there'd still only be 2 stops.
Oh, okay. I was
Yeah.
thinking about 5. It's
Great.
kind of
No,
like,
no,
Jane,
no.
that's great.
No,
No, that's a
no.
great
Okay.
point, Jane. No, thanks, Rudy.
Sure. Yeah, if I could frame that, at least in how I'm kind of approaching this, Rudy and Jane, is that, you know, it seems viable for it to get up to the fire station, do a stop there and turn around. It's worth us kind of looking at considering some additional options, maybe as we kind of play around within the pilot year, as we look to refine some of these elements to see if there's, and just to get
Right.
those kind of down into this plan about some potential stops moving forward.
Yep. Excellent.
So just, I'll kind of wrap up here, you know, it just, those stops is definitely an important element. You know, I do think the marketing for this program is going to be huge in terms of, you know, things from both the town of Jerome and Cottonwood working together on the promotion of this new service. And as well as kind of a lot of those travel training functions in terms of how to use the broader CAT system. I think that it's not something we just want to roll out there without a whole lot of additional supports around it. So those are just other kind of considerations that I'd encourage the council, and I'll put some recommendations into the planning document about maybe some strategies for those. But then I guess to council, are there any other kind of considerations, things that you think we're missing, or other questions that you have that we can address at this point?
Mayor Alex has her hand up.
Alex, please. Yes, Alex?
I want to thank you for working on this. We've been working on this for quite some time to try to figure out how we can utilize this service. So I want to say thank you for the presentation. The firehouse, that free parking lot up there, that is not really a place that the locals would go. That's where we use our tourism, like move around our tourists. So depending on how big that CATS van is, I think I've seen it cruising around, to make the corner just right there on Main Street, pick up people uptown, and then have either the high school or the Gulch, depending on need. So maybe 3 quick stops rather than 2. So for the locals, the town it's not that big, but to have a few different spots for the different areas for the need of people is really what Jane was trying to say. So more, more reach out and find out who exactly is going to want to ride the bus would make us know which of the stops would be the quickest and the most feasible. And again, thank you for working with us. This is exciting to get a bus to take people around. The only thing, the downside I was thinking, it would be probably good for pharmacies and for doctors' offices, visits like that. But with that sort of a wait, I don't know how you could really do much grocery shopping unless you carried a ice cooler or some sort of bag with you like that. Thank you, Jack. That's all I have.
Great. Thanks a lot. Thank you. Any other questions, council members? Mandy, any? No, I don't see anything.
I have a quick question.
Sure, Candace.
Once the program starts and the stops are determined, if we find that the stops might be better in other locations, is there some flexibility to change it?
That's a great question. And that's definitely the approach that I'm planning on taking with this planning document. Again, for you guys to utilize these 5311 funds for these, it needs to be identified in the plan. So I'm hoping to be very general with the plan in that, hey, we can definitely get up to the Jerome's, the fire station, and then kind of list out all these additional potential locations that we can kind of evaluate through the pilot period. And I think a big piece of that is going to just relate to the feasibility of getting a bus in and out in a safe manner. So I think that's absolutely something I'm hoping that we can kind of frame within this approach is that flexibility for tweaking the stops.
I think what I'm hearing from council is that the fire station probably isn't the best place
Yeah.
to focus on.
Yeah.
But to come into town, where you come by the Spirit Room and make a left, there's those central steps there is a place there you can pull over briefly.
Yep.
That might be one of the stops, and then something else further down.
Yep.
Todd,
Dr. Mayor,
Yes, Mandy.
sorry, what Candace just said, I mean, we could kind of look at where does the school bus pick up and drop off
Yeah.
and see if any of those are a more, because the people in town are kind of used to that being, those being bus stop locations. That might be, something we could coordinate.
Good. Thank you.
may I add something?
Yes, please, Rudy.
I think this is mostly for Todd, but I think what we can do is look at those locations and we can go ahead and make another run at those other stops and see how that route would be, because we'll be running the bus, an actual bus. So if you see a bus up there from CATS, we're probably just testing the system
Great.
to see whatever stops that are being proposed will work out well.
Great. And to me, a worst case scenario is that maybe we sacrifice one of the parking spots in the areas that, we've been that Alex has mentioned, for example, and make it a bus stop. If we, worst case scenario, if we need to identify a spot. But yeah, I like the flexibility. I like the opportunity to see which one works best. But that's great because, yeah, I agree. I don't think citizens are going to really walk all the way up to that 300 level parking lot to get the bus. That won't be so easy, I believe.
Mayor,
And Jack, I want to follow up on that just a
Yeah.
tad. There is a spot right there that you can pull in. It is, I think it's a red zone. The fire department, the police uses it. You can pull in right there. And
Exactly.
then pull right back out.
Yep.
Thank you.
That makes sense.
And
That's a good spot.
Mandy read my mind about the school bus. I had just written down in my notes, the school bus.
Good. Good.
Mayor, Jane
Yes.
has her hand up, and then when she's done, I have another question.
Okay, good. Jane, please.
Mandy had, that was a good suggestion too, yeah. What size bus are we talking about? A regular size bus?
These are not buses like you would see from a school bus. These are what they call cutaways. They're roughly 20, 25 feet long and 8 foot wide.
Okay.
Yeah, not so big. Great, good question. Thank you. Candace?
Yeah, has there been any discussion about which day would be preferable? Does council have any thoughts about that, or Todd, have you thought about that? And are there some limitations that we have with that?
I can introduce briefly that's part of the assessment that we're trying to figure out with that red route. It's so definitely talking about a weekday, not a weekend service. So it'd be during the week. And we are trying to assess which specific day the red route would be most conducive to running up to Jerome. I think some preliminary thoughts were potentially Thursday, Rudy, if I'm remembering that correctly.
We've talked about both Wednesday and Thursday.
Wednesday and
Just
Thursday, yeah.
Just a heads up, we haven't talked to the college, Yavapai College or Clarkdale as far as the route itself, because that's the route that would be affecting that area. I suspect we won't have too much of a pushback because that'll be adding some more availability for residents to be able to go uptown, up to Jerome, as well as people coming in to visit their community. So I don't see a real problem. It's just a matter of coming down to which day would work best for Jerome, and then we'll discuss that with Clarkdale and the modifications we need to do on that red route.
Thanks,
It
Rudy.
just seems to me that since we have the existing shuttle service on Wednesday, a different day would be better so that those
Yes.
people could have two opportunities actually.
Absolutely, absolutely, Candace. So Wednesday and the Thursday might be the first shot right now to think about. Good. Any other questions, council members? Boy, great presentation, Todd, Rudy. I think I'm so excited that our discussions have really led to some meaningful options. So really good. Alex, did you have any further question, comment, or anything, or you're okay?
That it's been a long time coming. Thank you, Dem, and thank you, council. Lots of work, lots of talks finally pay off, it seems.
Yep,
Thank you.
absolutely. This is going to be great once we get this resolved. Just so you know, Rudy and Todd, this is just such a great opportunity for our citizens. Thank you so very, very much. And we're very appreciative of your creative presentation and the options you presented. Very innovative, and they sound great. So at this point, Candace, what do we do it now? We're finished with this?
We're finished with this. I did suggest to Bill that he log off while we were dealing with all this. So I'm going to text him so he can come back on for the executive session.
Okay,
So
good.
maybe a 5-minute break.
5-minute break. Thanks a lot, Todd. Thanks, Rudy. Great job. We're really excited and we're on board. So thank you.
All righty, appreciate
All
it.
the best.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I'd like to move us into an executive session with council, please.
Motion to go to executive session?
A second. Motion is second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed,
Sorry,
no?
who seconded that? I'm sorry.
Jane?
Shane did? Okay.
Oh,
No? Okay, moving into executive
All
session.
right, hold on.
Bill?
I'm gonna stop the recording 1 sec.
We are now into our open session.
And there's just 2 people here, so.
Rosa, welcome back.
Okay,
All right,
all right.
and it's Nancy Robinson. Hi. Okay, any other issues to discuss? No? Hearing none, can I get a motion?
I believe we were going to just state for the record that at the next meeting, we're going to be having a discussion about Sedona's ordinance with respect to short-term rentals and discuss the possibility of doing something like that here in Jerome.
Great. Thank you. And we're all in favor of that. Any, not hearing any other discussion items, entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
before we-
You got- is there a
Wait, hold
second?
on. Hold on, before we adjourn,
Yes,
the statement that Candace made, I don't know if I'm having a lag. As you could tell, I'm having a little bit of connection
Sure.
problems.
yes.
If the recording got the statement that Candace just made, because after she was done, my tablet said recording in progress. Just make sure the statement that Candace made.
It was there, Alex. I think you're just, it's like you said, your connection is lagging a little bit. But thank you.
Then I will send the adjournment.
Thank you. Okay. All those in, and Jane, you second maybe? Yes? Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. We are adjourning our meeting now at 11:39. Thank you all very much. Have a good rest of your day and best wishes for the upcoming holidays. Well, I'll see you at the council meeting next week.
Hi, can I just ask real
Oh, yeah, and
quick?
booster, don't forget the shots, booster shots Thursday, 1 to 4 inside the fire station. And we're going to have 2 choices of the boosters. And there may be some single J&J shots there for those that have not been vaccinated that would like it.
Excuse me,
Yes.
Hi.
Yes,
who,
Rose.
who made the motion to adjourn and who seconded? please?
Alex made it and Jane seconded it.
It was the other way around, actually.
Jane made it, Alex seconded it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Stopping the recording. Good night, good afternoon,
Good
everyone.
night. Good night. Oh, my God.
A long day already.
I get it.